Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's an absolute privilege and honor to host Mr. Murthy virtually at Bengaluru 2040. Thank you so very much, sir, for joining us. Um, I know we don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to go straight into the questions. Mr. Murthy, as a seasoned Bangalorean, could you tell us some of the things you love about the city? And what are some of your pet peeves about India's Silicon Valley?
I thank you and the organizers of Deccan Herald for organizing this fantastic platform of thinking about what are the ways in which we can improve Bangalore so that it becomes even more livable in 2040. And my thanks to you in particular for inviting me. I speak from London. Okay. There are many things that I like in Bangalore. The first time I came to Bangalore was in 1962 as a 15 and a half year old kid. For me, Jayanagar is the most likable suburb in India. It is well designed and it is well laid out. Good road signs are there everywhere thanks to the municipality, the corporation. Roads are reasonably wide with trees on both sides. There are good facilities like shops, restaurants, hospitals, schools, colleges, playgrounds, and places of worship available in every block in Jayanagar. Jayanagar also has some of the best doctors in India. There is even a Gayana Samaja for music recitals and Ranga Shankara for plays. Now, the second part, my desire is that Bangalore roads outside Jayanagar should be decongested so that commuting to the central business district is not a punishment for office goers and for children going to schools. Second, the cleaning of the roads and localities, which used to happen on alternate days in 1980s, does not seem to happen today. I hope I am wrong, but I haven't seen anybody cleaning the roads, at least in my locality. Third, many houses are being demolished and apartments are being built. This, is something that you can do nothing about because cost of living has gone up, and therefore house owners are selling and apartments are coming. There's nothing, but as long as they create proper facilities for waste disposal, proper connection to water and electricity and sewage, that's okay. No, but there is one problem with such construction of apartments in my own locality, and that is roads are being used as storage places for such construction. I think the municipality must take a very tough decision on not allowing such things. Roads, next, of course, there is no train or metro into the central bus station from Jayanagar to the central railway station and to those of us who use the airport to the airport. Now, mosquito menace has not yet been conquered even after 75 years. Even in my house, I live in 4th T block in Jayanagar. We have to make sure that all the windows have mosquito nets and we don't open the door often so that the mosquitoes don't come in. I think this is a very sad state of affairs. The final thing I would like to say is that the construction of new layouts is ill planned, haphazard, and without proper roads. It is sad because the elders who are in charge of engineering in the municipalities in the 40s and 50s, they constructed very good localities, but for some reason, the current set of engineers, the current set of planners, either they have not learned from them or there are other considerations why such things have happened. I would say these are the things, yeah.
So, do you think we've used technology well to solve Bengaluru's problems, Mr. Murthy? And why or why not?
Well, in my own opinion, we have not used technology sufficiently. Let me give you some data because I'm an engineer. There are very few traffic lights in Bangalore. For example, in Jayanagar, even in major intersections, there are no traffic lights, and everybody is trying to go his or her way, creating traffic jams every day. It's funny that Bangalore is called the Silicon City, but we do not use much technology in optimizing the management of water, sanitation, electricity, waste, and traffic, and in limiting pollution. Therefore, there is a lot of scope for that. There is also no or very little fiber based connectivity in many suburbs in Bangalore. We do not have a very robust e governance system. The safety of women in the nights, though it is not as bad as Delhi, of course, Delhi is a sad case, is still an issue. I mean, if the daughter of the house does not return home by 8 p.m., I have seen so many friends of mine fretting about their daughter not returning. We still have much work to modernize our physical, social, and digital networks to provide happy, healthy, safe, equitable, and sustainable living for the citizens of Bangalore. So, for some reason, I do not see coin operated laundries like in the developed world. Maybe almost everybody in the middle class has the washer and the dryer at home, but there are a lot of poor people who cannot afford, and maybe for their sake it would have been nice, like it happens in the western countries, to have coin operated laundries. Let me stop here. Yeah.
So, what can the IT and the startup ecosystem do specifically to make Bengaluru better?
Well, then the IT and startup companies have made an important contribution to the city, the state, and even the country by creating a large number of reasonably paying white collar jobs. And that is a very important contribution. That is the first contribution required of any company, because once you have your youth coming out of colleges having reasonable jobs, then the country's prosperity will start improving. Second, the IT companies are the largest taxpayers in the state. There is absolutely no doubt at all. About 38% of India's software export comes from the city of Bangalore. And therefore, when they pay these taxes, that is a reasonably good. Third, these companies have created jobs in the secondary and tertiary sectors of the city, since the employees of these companies, they shop, they rent houses, they buy real estate, they go to restaurants, they go to malls, they go to movie houses, as well as they use e-commerce companies like Uber, Ola, Amazon, Flipkart, Swiggy, etc., etc. That means they are helping create jobs in the secondary and tertiary sectors of the economy. That is an extremely important contribution of IT companies. They've also enhanced the GDP of the country, or the GNP of the country, the gross national product of the country, because a lot of these services we deliver outside India. But they have done it in a highly sustainable manner, because our industry does not pollute the environment. It uses the lowest amount of water that is required. It uses the lowest amount of electricity, etc., etc. Now, some large IT companies like Infosys have taken responsibility to work with the state and the central governments to build flyovers and have improved the area around their centers. It's probably, maybe Infosys may be the first one or the major ones to have done this, but they have done that. For example, Infosys is building the metro station at Electronic City at its own cost. Second, Mr. Mohandas Pai and I worked continuously with the central government to create that 9-kilometer flyover from the Silk Board Junction right up to Electronic City. Next, entities like Infosys Foundation, they have built hospitals, they have donated high-tech equipment to hospitals, they have supported midday meal scheme to poor children through organizations like Akshay Patra. As you know, Infosys Foundation has done a lot of these projects in Bangalore. They have also participated in several government committees in making Bangalore a better place. For example, Nandan Nilekani, my colleague, was the chairman of the initiative to make Bangalore a better city when Sri Krishna was the chief minister. So I think, and then, Chris Gopalakrishnan has been the chairman of the IT committee, and I used to participate in that, etc., etc. So I think the IT companies have both directly and indirectly added a lot of values to the state. Let me stop here.
Sure. So you talked about coin-operated laundries before. So what are some of the other things or models that you've seen elsewhere that you think we can recreate in Bengaluru to make it future-ready?
Well, there are several technological parks designed to create employment and at the same time make the city livable and easy for commuters. Singapore, Pudong National Park in National Technology Park in near Shanghai in China, Cambridge Technology Park in the UK, Har Hatsumim in Jerusalem, and Cyberport in Hong Kong are some of the good examples that come to my mind of creating a technology park within a city while making it highly livable and sustainable. Unfortunately, when Electronic City was built, there was no road, there was no electricity, nothing. We used to take about 2.5 to 3 hours each way to reach Electronic City. That was as late as 1993. So I think there is a lot that the government can think of in designing such technology parks, so that you provide these facilities. For example, in 2007, when we visited Pudong to start an operation in Pudong, we were surprised, very pleasantly surprised to see wonderful facilities of electricity, excellent roads, very good public transportation, as well as cafeteria, shops, malls within the Pudong National Technology Park. So I think there's a lot that we can learn from these developed and developing countries which have done better than India. And if we learn from those, I personally feel that our bureaucrats and our politicians can also make Bangalore a better place. So I would simply say just take the model of a smart city and combine it with the model for one of these high-tech cities, high-tech parks, and then you have the solution. What is the reason why it's not happening? That is because we are not an action-oriented culture. For example, it takes 5 to 6 years to build a metro line here in Bangalore, while it happens in just 2 years elsewhere. I have seen it in Thailand, I have seen it in Taiwan, I have seen it in other places in the world. So I think what is important is you need to get to an action oriented culture. Once we create an action oriented culture, I believe that this city will continue to become even stronger because when you contribute 38% of probably somewhere around $190 billion of software export, of which probably about 50% could be right from within India. Therefore, you're talking of about 30, $35 billion of export happening right in Bangalore city. Therefore, I believe that if all of us come together, the bureaucrats, the politicians, and some of the corporate leaders, I believe that we will make Bangalore even better. Let me stop here.
Excellent. So now a pandemic-related question, Mr. Murthy. Many companies allowed their employees to work from home during the pandemic. Do you think prolonged work from home policies could hurt the understanding of company culture among staffers, especially those who joined companies recently? And could that in turn reduce employee loyalty and perhaps companies' ability to retain them?
No, I think it's a very important point you made, and there is a lot of merit in what you said. However, even before we talk about it, employee productivity is very important because if a one country wants to become more and more and more prosperous, it has to increase the work productivity, which when combined with innovation will translate to revenue productivity. I am not a great fan of work from home at all. I understand it was probably needed during the time of extreme COVID 19 situation. I understand that. I fully accept it. India is still at a very early stage of development. We, all of us, have to realize that we are still at an early stage of development because our per capita revenue product, our per capita GDP or GNP is still less than $2,000. It's slightly less than even Bangladesh, right? According to the latest statistics, it's somewhere around $1,850 or something. So, therefore, this is the time when every one of us has to work 16 hours a day and 6 days a week, like the Germans did after the Second World War. I don't know how many of you know, Germans took a decision to work 16 hours a day and about 6 days a week after the World War. Not all of them, but several critical industries. And I believe we'll have to emulate it. That is the only way we can accelerate our growth and follow China. China has already become 5 times the GDP of India, and we are fast catching up ourselves with China's population. They're probably just about 50 million or 100 million population more than us. So therefore, we have to look at countries that are large and that have succeeded in improving the lot of their country, because as you know, China is approximately around $10,000 of per capita GDP. India is slightly less than 2,000. Therefore, we have our task cut out. In my opinion, work from home is not suitable since very few employees have separate rooms at home, because there are children, there are old people, etc., etc. And you also need the requisite bandwidth at home. Almost every house that I have inquired with, that I've seen, will have parents and young children. There'll be much disturbance. So productivity will automatically be low. I mean, we can't blame these young people, because when they're working with children around, with parents around, and visitors coming in and going out, etc., their productivity will be low. Further, as you have pointed out, it is very difficult to build an institutional culture of hard work, speed, imagination, excellence in execution, meritocracy, openness to new ideas and discussion and debates when people work from home. Because that institutional culture will slowly become weaker and weaker and weaker, and the culture of specific homes will overtake. That is not a good thing for a country like India, which has great aspirations to become like China, because China is 5 times our GDP. Therefore, we want to become 6 times our GDP in a short period. My wish is that all the companies get back to working in the office at the earliest. Let me stop here.
At Deccan Herald, we have already gotten back to working from the office, so we
Wonderful.
have taken your advice already. And
Yeah.
as I promised you before the interview, this is going to be our last question to
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
So a recent NASSCOM study said that the demand-supply gap for digital talent is expected to rise over 3.5 times to 1.4 to 1.8 million by 2026. How can we solve this problem, Mr. Murthy?
Then yeah, we have, or our industry has two problems. One is, as you pointed out, low quality of talent, low quantity of talent, and second is low quality of talent. Barring the top 20% in most engineering colleges, the rest of the students need heavy hand holding and training to make them useful to companies. The second problem is the paradigm of learning by rote that the Indian higher educational system has perfected. We force our youngsters to learn by rote. We have to transform our youngsters from being reactive problem solvers under heavy supervision to proactive problem definers and solvers on their own. In other words, we do not need, we do not, people will say, tell me what you want me to do, explain what should be done, and then I will do. This is almost like This is not something that we can continue to do if we have big dreams. This is a huge problem. I hope that our new education policy will suggest some solution for this serious problem. But as you know, Danya, it takes a long time because this is a cultural issue. In the interim, my suggestion is that companies have to invest very heavily in intensive training programs like Infosys has done in Mysore. We have created the world's largest training facility. It's a residential training center where 11,300 single occupancy rooms and about 500 faculty rooms are there. Since our training program is about 6 months long, we can train approximately 45,000 engineering trainees in a year if we use those rooms as on a twin sharing basis. We focus on learning there. We focus on improving the learnability there. I define learnability as the ability to extract generic inferences from specific instances and using them in solving new unstructured problems. The day every engineering college in the country focuses on learnability, focuses on helping our youngsters solve new and structured problems from the generic inferences that they have learned from specific instances, I have a feeling that the future for India will be extremely bright. And that is one way that India can quickly enhance its GNP by a factor of 4 to 5 times, like China has done. Let me stop here.
Mr. Murthy, thank you so very much. T- I'm sorry we have a hard stop because Mr. Murthy has too many other engagements today, so we're not taking any questions from the audience. Um, Mr. Menon, I'm sorry, I really can't, he doesn't have the bandwidth. But I just want to thank you, Mr. Murthy, for taking out the
Pleasure.
time. Every time I've reached out to you for a favor, I remember when I was writing the Orbit, when the founder of Singapore passed away, I reached out to you. You were on a plane from China. You still replied. You came to speak to my students at ACJ, and now at Deccan Herald for our first ever summit. So thank you so very much, Mr. Murthy. It's been an absolute privilege hosting you today.
Thank you very much. It is an absolute pleasure to speak to the wonderful audience that has assembled there. It's my privilege. Thank you very much. Take care.